Welcome to A Convict's Thoughts. I'll tell you what, Xander is becoming a complete video hog. He wants to be on camera at all times. I'm just getting set up, do a quick little show video here, and Xander is determined. As you can see, he's got to be in the picture. I just love him to death, and I'm so appreciative of all of you that have been accepting of his little ability to get into every video and make noise in the background as well. Today, I'm going to be doing numerous videos today as I plan on taking the dogs out to the park near the lake. We're going to get some sunshine and enjoy some outdoor time, so I thought I'd bring some of you guys with us while we do that. So this will be video one of probably two or three that I'll do today, as I have a couple of things that I want to speak upon. The first video I want to talk about, as Xander's going to get involved, is PCA, the probable cause affidavit, the discovery process that all leads up to trial, and when evidence has to be turned over, and does the defendant get all the evidence prior to the trial. There's a lot of mistaken thoughts regarding that I hear a lot of people, I read a lot of people discuss back and forth, to where they're just not quite right in the things that they're saying. Now, a lawyer, you want to know, that I see quite a bit on YouTube, is very good at explaining documents, and he is excellent in regards to breaking all of that down. I'm a big fan of his as well, as I'm sure many of you are. I think he does a great job of making it very basic and very easy to understand. I'm not one that really takes the route of getting a document, putting it in front of you, going over the documents. I'm more of a personal experience type person. As I've been through the realm, I've been through everything that this suspected defendant's going through now, as well as many others across the country. So I base most of what I speak upon on personal experience. Now, when it comes to a PCA, it's called a probable cause affidavit for a reason. When the officer is looking at a suspect and wants to proceed in making an arrest, they write what's called a probable cause affidavit that's going to be turned over to the court system, to a judge, to make the determination on whether there's probable cause for an arrest. Many people feel as though, and I've heard many say in this case, in the Idaho 4 tragedy, that they feel as though all the evidence that's going to be used against this defendant is most likely demonstrated within that PCA. That's incorrect, ladies and gentlemen. The discovery and the turned over discovery affidavits that get turned over from the prosecution to the defense is what outlines all of the evidence that's been collected within a case. In many of my cases, the probable cause affidavit was the strong points that the officers found against me to be able to reach out and get an arrest. If I wasn't caught red-handed in the act of the crime, you have to get a probable cause affidavit that a court signs off for the officers to have the ability to come look for you, find you, and arrest you. In this case, obviously, the probable cause was necessary because the defendant actually had left the state and proceeded to go all the way across the United States to another state on the East Coast. The probable cause probably took many attempts to secure an arrest warrant because, as you know, they were looking to try to get the DNA evidence that would seal up the ability for the PCA to be enough evidence to get the arrest. They were never going to get the arrest based off of cell phone pings or, statements of seeing clad in black with bushy eyebrows. That just never was going to be enough. A DNA sample hit pretty much would secure that arrest. Now, where a lot of people are misconstrued is that PCA is not the actual end result evidence, even in what they are presenting to the court for the arrest. Meaning some of that evidence can be deemed inadmissible, it could be deemed incorrect, and there could be additional evidence that could be added to it of another suspect or something else that's not included in the probable cause for this suspect's arrest. So in my case, most of my crimes were an individual crime. However, as many of you known and I've spoken upon, I was a part of an affiliation that were investigated and at times arrested altogether within crimes. That would be numerous probable cause affidavits. They couldn't secure one probable cause to go arrest 4 to 8 people. They would have to have an individual probable cause that tied each individual player into that actual arrest. So, if there's more than one suspect in the Idaho 4 case, which we don't know as of yet, right now they're deeming it a one-person crime, and that's the way they're proceeding towards trial. However, there are implications that many are finding within some of the documents that could show that there maybe possibly is more people on the radar. Who knows? If so, a probable cause affidavit would have to be issued for those individuals' arrests, detailing out the reasoning by evidence that they deem an arrest should be made for that individual. It's almost like a search warrant in the sense you have to get the application to be able to search. Well, you need to get the application to be able to arrest, and that's what the PCA is for. Discovery is a whole nother ballgame, and discovery starts from the minute the investigation, the first minute you walk into the actual crime scene, and it lasts all the way for years upon years, most likely, after even the trial is done and over with. And the reason why is the investigation is going to continue into any said evidence found. Evidence is not always found and deemed as evidence on day 1, day 2, day 3. Meaning, after this probable cause affidavit was issued to the court, the arrest warrant was issued for the defendant, the arrest was made, now he's been in jail approaching a year, evidence is still being collected. As that evidence is collected, it's made discoverable within evidentiary to the defense from the prosecution. So many in this case, even myself, have been frustrated over the speed in which the prosecution is turning over evidence to the defense. The problem with the frustration on our parts is this. The prosecution is not the ones gathering the evidence. The evidence is being supplied to them via the investigators that are doing the full-out investigation on the case. You have numerous agencies, you have numerous people involved in that search for evidence. As it's found, it is processed, and then it would be, if it's deemed legitimate evidence within the case, it will be turned over to the prosecution, who then does their investigation into said evidence. They contact said witnesses. They discuss things with investigators. They have to do their due diligence to ensure it's going to be evidence that they're going to pursue using within the courtroom at trial. Now, even if they deem they will not be using it at trial, it still has to be discoverable to the defense so that they have the opportunity to do their investigation as well, looking into all means of evidence within the case, because they have the right to find evidence that may prove their client innocent. It's a wild, wild goose chase on both sides to deem whether it's really evidence, not evidence, or what it might be. So everything needs to be turned over and discoverable so every player in the game can have their hands into determining what's valuable to the trial and what's not. Now, discovery will typically turn over far more than what's ever even deemed evidence. So when people look at this, they say, oh wow, 51 terabytes of evidence was discoverable from the prosecution to the defense. They have so much evidence against this suspect. Not true. Many things add up to seem to be far more evidence than it legitimately is. If you have a 12-hour video of a, let's say, Linda Lane footage that shows hours upon hours of nothing but darkness and the sun rising in the morning. And that's turned over as discovery because it's a part of a long video that shows a 2 minute span of a car driving through it. That's considered a part of that terabytes. I know a lot of people feel like in this case there's a tremendous amount of evidence based off the fact they said they turned over 20,000 photos, 10,000 called in tips, 51 terabytes of evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, much of that is nothing. Nothing at all. They got to turn over people's testimony and statements that were given that have nothing to do even with the case. Every phone call made as a tip has to be turned in, even if it's just a chatterbox of an insane person, because you never know what was included in that, and it was deemed a tip. So that all has to be turned over. Personal experience, I've been in a couple of cases where so much evidence was turned over from the prosecution in a discovery to my defense attorneys that was legitimately nothing. It was done so that my attorneys had to spend an extra amount of time digging through all such turned over discovery, taking up their time and their effort, maybe making them less patient in actually investigating the real evidence of the case. I want everybody to understand, I get the full realm and the importance of an investigation from start to finish. I get how everybody feels in this case. There's going to be overwhelming evidence that is turned over based off of what has been released of the 51 terabytes and the unlimited amount of tips and all of this information. Most of that's not going to matter. We need to really wait and see what the important evidence is. And it's in that discovery. And what hasn't been turned over in that discovery is what the defense is fighting to get turned over. That is what turned this in from the ability to be a fast and speedy trial into now a normal, long-winded, gonna take forever to get into the courtroom type trial. Evidence didn't get turned over in a timely manner, and there's probably a good possibility the reason before that is because evidence was still being gathered, evidence was still being processed by the prosecution to even see if it's legitimate or usable before it's turned over to the defense, who then would get their time frame to be able to investigate. So this is very normal, ladies and gentlemen. I've spoken to you guys numerous times in regards to how long it's taken for some of my cases to get from start to finish to where we could actually head towards a trial. None of them were deemed fast and speedy. There was no time frame in which everything had to be met by, because that was waived pretty much immediately in most of my cases, as we knew the evidence wasn't going to be quick and it wasn't going to come in all at one time. So for those of you, and it's a double-edged sword, many of you believe, and I've heard many even very intelligent, very versed, and very experienced individuals say the PCA is going to deem the majority of the evidence. It might be the most of their solid evidence, I'll give it that. That might be all they have that's the main hard to go to get evidence. But that's not all their evidence, ladies and gentlemen. That's why all the follow-up warrants and everything were taking place to search the separate entities like Amazon and all of that. By the time the PCA was written, those warrants hadn't even been written or come back for the additional evidence. So the investigation's still ongoing to this day. I guarantee it. They have not even got all of their warrant information back as of yet. That's why this gentleman is not deemed guilty. I'm not going to be one that will ever come on here and give you the idea that I feel that this individual is 100% guilty, because I do not believe that. It's going to cut many of you in half, of whether you like me or not. But I'm not one that's found this individual guilty. I haven't heard all the evidence, for one. But for 2, I just know there's so many things still going on behind the scenes that are transpiring that leave so many wide open doors to so many other things transpiring in this case. And I will tell you, the investigation is still ongoing. Anybody that says this is the lone perpetrator, and for sure the only one, you better just kind of hold on, because they're still investigating. 5 years from now, the second and third and fourth perp might come into the view, and they may have their day in court at a later time. It doesn't mean that this gentleman won't go to court and go through his jury trial, but it also leaves a wide open door for other people to be brought in as well. So, just a quick first get the day started video for you. Going over the PCA, it's a probable cause affidavit, ladies and gentlemen. It's theory based. It is not 100% legitimate evidence that will be used at trial. You just don't know. It's a probable cause to get an arrest. The discovery, all of that being turned over within the courts, that we are seeing the documentation and the following of, that's what's going to be most important moving forward. Quit focusing on a PCA. It's not the damning evidence, everybody. It's not the damning evidence. It's not what will convict this suspect. The PCA was never a part of any of my felony convictions that I've had in my lifetime, both that I beat in the trials and others that I've been served prison time for. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Discoverable evidence and the information being passed today, it is what is most important, not the PCA probable cause. Have a great day. Video 1 of numerous. See you again when I get to the park with the dogs.